was involved in gunfire, returning gunfire on the suspects. The Michigan State Police had 3 troopers that were involved in exchanging gunfire, and I believe Sheriff Roseman's department had 2 deputies return fire?
There was 4.
4, I'm sorry, okay. That's
all at the exchange right at the end at 8th Avenue and the highway?
Yes, as far as I understand right now, there were no officers that returned any fire on anybody outside of the final area. Do you know any different than that, Sheriff? The officers did not. There wasn't a rolling gun battle down the highways. Obviously, for safety reasons, we try to not do that. So.
Can you talk in general about just the danger, the threat that these guys posed, and what you guys were up against?
Well, I think it speaks for itself. I mean, anytime you have people that decide to run a rolling, raging gun battle with law enforcement through public streets and on the expressways with no regard whatsoever for what kind of danger they're placing the general public in, that kind of speaks for itself what kind of individuals these were.
When you're chasing, when police are chasing this vehicle, it has a license plate, presumably. Did you guys gather intel on who these guys were as this was going on? Did that maybe factor into how dangerous police knew or thought they were, or maybe was that not a factor?
Well, I mean, when you get a report that there's armed subjects in a bank wearing masks and they have what appears to be rifles, that right there, would tell you that this is this is it. I mean, you don't know whether they tell you that or not. Anytime you pull someone over, that could be the case. But when they tell you that, certainly. I mean, all the alerts are high, and you ask about the license plate. I wasn't there, and every officer. But when you think you're chasing somebody that may have a long gun in their car, obviously you do that with due caution for your own safety as much as possible. But these officers put their lives at stake to bring these people to a halt, and whether or not they saw the license plate and were able to gather information, I'd have to go back and hear the dispatch tapes and listen to what took place, and that's all part of the investigation that was going on.
Well, there was no law enforcement firing on the vehicle until the end, is that correct?
That's my understanding at this point. To be clear, it's preliminary, but right. I have no information that there was any gunfire from moving police cars towards the suspects.
But these guys didn't have the same.
No, they opened fire on, and I can let the sheriff speak to an incident that happened just outside of town here. There was definitely it was a very dangerous situation. So.
Were these involved? I'm sorry. Were these guys involved in any other bank robberies? Are you guys looking into these guys as far as other previous?
Again, I mean, the investigation will continue, and we'll work with all departments here to determine whether or not these individuals were responsible for anything else.
Where did they get the car? Where was it at the bank?
Dean, you can.
I can. The witness that actually was more or less our key witness during the robbery itself advised us that when he saw them leave the bank, they were actually in a different style vehicle. He followed them a distance down the road, watched them drive into a secluded area. Fortunately, and with good thought on his part, he did not follow them down to that location. He instead returned to the bank to be a good witness, checked on everybody. Everybody at the bank was okay. He was going to go back and sit in the area where he saw them last in order to alert the patrol cars when they got there. And as he was approaching that area where he last saw them, he then saw another vehicle, which is ultimately the vehicle that crashed over here where the event ended. So indication is at this point that they had stashed what would ultimately be a getaway vehicle a short distance from the bank.
Apologies if this was addressed earlier. What time frame are we looking at from when the robbery started to when the crash occurred? About how long the span was?
I will tell you, from what I've been briefed on by my detectives at the scene, the bank robbery occurred right around 10 a.m. and I don't have a event time for.
I believe it was about 20 minutes.
Probably 20-25 minutes total.
As the second vehicle that you talked about, possibility of 2 vehicles, has that second vehicle been recovered?
We have impounded that vehicle, yes.
Has all the money been recovered? They didn't stash money somewhere or throw it out the window like they did in the other case? Yeah.
And the bravado, though, was that a stolen vehicle, or did that belong to one of the suspects or a relative?
I don't have any of that information as to the origin of that particular vehicle.
So at what point did you find them? Did you spot the vehicle and start the chase?
It was shortly after the witness returned to the scene and saw the second vehicle leaving at a high rate of speed that the information then was then obtained, and that's when the patrol car, who was a short distance from the original bank call, was able to get on the vehicle.
And can you go through just the chase just one more time of the streets?
I don't have all the details of what streets or what roads, and I will refer to my colleague from Ottawa County Sheriff Rosamond, because the majority of the chase occurred through Ottawa and a little bit into Kent, but they traveled south out of the village of Urbana, taking the southern roads and probably in a couple different directions. Ultimately ended up here in the city of Coopersville, where they then got an expressway, and I'll let Sheriff Rosamond, if he has any detailed route.
They basically came, like the sheriff indicated, south out of Ravenna. They hit 56th Avenue coming into the city of Coopersville here. One of our officers became engaged there. They went to Randall Street. From Randall Street, they went east to the roundabout at 68th Avenue. That's at one of the first points that one of our units received a gunshot to his vehicle. And then the vehicle went southbound on 68th Avenue to the expressway, then eastbound.
Was Officer Slot involved at all in the pursuit, or was he just called in kind of, I was wondering if you had people at each exit putting stop sticks down or getting ready to do that because you knew he was getting on and off, suspects were getting on and off, or was he involved at all?
There was a couple times throughout the chase where stop sticks were deployed either along the expressway and or along the two-lane roads, and they avoided those, and he was setting up because he was aware of the fact that that vehicle had already turned and was coming back westbound on the expressway.
Chief, can you talk about just the person Officer Slot was? We know about his his work history, and he's got family, but can you just talk about just the type of person he was?
He was an outstanding officer, very jovial, church-going man, but all in all, he was an exceptional officer. We were very, very proud of him, and he's definitely going to be missed.
Chief, that scene today was very somber out there when officers began to arrive and learned the news that they had lost one of their own. How do you possibly separate the personal from the professional when you're standing there looking at that? Because they still had to go about their investigation.
To be real honest, that's where having wonderful partners come in. That's where Sheriff Rosamond, his personnel, state police, FBI, all of our partners play an important role. Unfortunately, some of our officers witnessed what happened because they were part of the chase. And that's where the professionalism comes in. But it's without the partners, it's a really lonely piece.
Could someone talk about, obviously, these guys are jumping out, firing shots.